charitable organization that creates opportunities for parents to connect to learning resources that provide educational assistance and support student well-being. And this is one of the ways that we want to try to open up the channels and create opportunities for you as parents to learn and how to better support your kids. The purpose again today is, as I said, to open up those channels because it is a big, confusing, fast-paced world. And we are each other's resources. And so we've been really blessed and fortunate to have two of our amazing Raptors 905 families come in and volunteer to share their stories. We hope that you'll be able to take some of these stories and tips and not only take them and share them with your family, but share it with your community as well too. This is one of two events that we're running this year with the Raptors 905. The second one's on March 10th, and that's where the players themselves are going to share their stories of how they've gotten to where they're at today and how they've dealt with challenges. So, without further ado, we're going to do some quick introductions. What we'll do is we have some preset questions. After that, we will have a Q&A, and then after that, the kids are going to come. And they're going to show us their little skits they've been working on, and then after that, wrap up with some final words from the families. So, thank you so much for coming, and what we'd like to do is, so we'll introduce everyone here from this side here. We have...
My name is Hugh Kane. My son is Kaza Kajami-Keane, and my lovely wife.
My name is Karen Keane, and that's my lovely husband. I'm the mother of Kaza Keane, and there was one of the comments that I wanted to just make is that they asked to say a little bit about myself, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm in law, but my greatest accomplishment is being a parent. So everybody who's here, I'm sure that you feel the same way, right?
I agree with that. I second that. I'm Donna Best, and my son is Aaron Best, and he wears number 2 jersey on Raptors 905. And this is my lovely niece, Sierra, and my nephew.
Ryan, Aaron's cousin. I spent a lot of time playing with him growing up, so it's good to see him being the younger one out there doing his thing, and I'd love to speak to you guys today.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And we are really lucky, even though we talk about parents, we know it's more than parents that really can make a difference. And in Donna's situation here, that's why she thought, she'd have her niece and nephew be part of it, so you can hear their stories and how siblings and other family members do play a large role. So, first question, and if it's okay, we'll start with you and Karen. Please tell us a bit about yourself and what life was like in the household with your kids.
Well, a little bit about myself is, my name is, well, you know my name. I work with the school board. I'm a community support worker. I have been engaged in community building and community support since I was maybe 17, 18, doing after-school programs and things of that nature. So that kind of just transcends into some of the other things, because I believe it takes a village to raise a child. That's kind of my motto around things, because it's all of us collectively that makes their lives successful as well.
Hugh and I, we actually have a nonprofit organization that we run, so like Hugh said, we've been involved in the community with youth for a very long time, and we know how important it is to give back and to participate in your child's lives. And I think it's really important that you're here right now, because that shows that you're involved with your children and you want to make a difference in their lives. And it's about sacrifice, and I think it's a sacrifice for you to be here this morning, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm a working mom, And the basketball life started for us a while ago. It didn't happen just yesterday or last year. It takes hard work, takes a huge family commitment, and we've been at it for a good few years. Aaron, I think from 6 years old, I think that's where it started. When my nephew here, Ryan, he got a basketball net for his birthday, and Aaron never left my sister's house at 6. We spent a lot of time there, and I can still hear his little voice in the driveway with the older boys, all my nephew's friends, saying, come on Ryan, what you got, what you got? So it's in his blood. We've been at it for a long time, and just to make you aware, it definitely is a family commitment, and we've been at it for a while, and it takes a lot of hard work, and the kids have put the work in, and we're here now. So we thank you all for being here this morning too.
Wonderful, thank you. So, let's go with the best household. So someone can speak about how were you involved in your child's learning, and can you give us an example related to school or outside of school, and how that impacted your son? 3 questions.
Well, first of all, the cousins, everybody was raised as siblings. So they're all cousins, but our motto is they're all siblings. They all knew they had each other's back. They had to look out for each other. And I was always in my son's agenda. Like I was all over that agenda, making sure the schoolwork was done, if there were any projects or assignments that were due, making sure that he managed his time wisely and gave himself enough time to get his assignments and projects done. So I was everywhere, all over that agenda. And homework, the kids spent a lot of time together, so they would do homework together. And the older, I'll say siblings, cousin siblings, they would help the younger ones. So it's kind of like each one teach one. They help each other. And so everyone was raised as siblings, and that was what our household is pretty much like. Yeah.
Great. And Keane.
I noticed that she passes this mic me every time, which is... Can you repeat the question for me?
So yeah, how were you involved in your child's learning? And can you give us an example? And how did it impact your son?
Now, with the kids, education has always been like one of the big emphases in our household. The idea of you are going to go to university or you're going to go to higher education was something that was stemmed from a very young age. I am a very strong believer in, like knowing phonics, knowing those type of things, so I tried to make a strong emphasis on them learning those things at a very early stage. I think the girls got it a lot quicker than Kaza. I don't know if it's a male-female thing, but there was a point in his life where I was like, but he did end up picking it up at his pace, which I think is the big thing as a parent that you want to learn, is not everybody gets it all at the same pace at the same time. So patience is a virtuous thing in that education piece. And supporting them in having the resiliency to overcome the things that failing a test is a big thing for a child. Succeeding is a reward. You want to make sure you do all those things. So I knew he loved basketball, and that was one of because I'm not really a firm believer in the hitting thing. So basketball was my belt. So I kind of used that as a tool to, if you don't get this grade, you don't get to play this game. And that was a real big motivator for Kaza's in the education piece. So.
Great. So, stress and anxiety and pressure, it's a big thing for many people today. And it exists in school, it exists in sports. So, did your son experience any of these? And I know even as a Raptor 905er, there's got to be a lot of stress and anxiety. So, how did you, as parents, support them through, their anxiety and dealing with all this stress from when they were young to maybe even today?
So I'll take over this one here. For just overall, time management is a very big thing for students of, like any students, elementary school, middle school, high school, until post-secondary. And as you said, for 905ers as well, it continues throughout life. It's just a lesson that you're learning to make your stress levels lower throughout life. So just a matter of, as Donna had said, my aunt had said there, she was always in his agenda, always making sure that, okay, you have this due on Thursday, put the games now. No video games today, get this done, and you can have all that time afterwards, because he does relieve stress. It's just it's a valuable tool for anybody to have realistically. Into university, a bigger thing, and you'll always hear Aaron say this as well, is you're a student first. You're a student athlete, but you're a student first, even the way that that is structured, student athlete, right? So it's a privilege, it's not guaranteed, so you gotta work on both ends. Gotta work just as hard on the court as you do in your books. They come hand in hand, you can't get one without the other. A big thing is just seeing those familiar things. When you're dealing with stress or any sort of anxiety, you have to see familiar things, do familiar things. So that's a big part of why the family is always around. You always got to try to make it out to games. You may not make the full game, but it could be the last 2 minutes in a game. Your son or daughter might look in the stands and see that you just got in, and that's that familiar face. Just calm them right down and brings them back to where they need to be. That's a big thing there, and home cooked food. It's a big thing. Like especially in university.
Hashtag home cooked food.
In university, right? Like it's hard. Like grandma, my aunt, my mom, they would always make sure, it's hard. It's hard for anyone, just as it is, right? But just getting that home cooked meal, that's one less thing you have to stress over after practice, in between studying. You can't do these things on an empty stomach. So just sticking to the basics and making sure that all these things were in order, it's bigger than anything. And you're still going to have stress, there's still going to be anxiety, but if you can lower it by any means, these are, I would say, good ways that anyone can help their children with.
Thanks, Ryan. I just want to point out when you mentioned grandma, grandma, stand up. Because grandma's here, and grandma's a big part of the home, right? So, home cooked food gives them health and love. Wonderful, thanks, Ryan. And team household. Same question. So, stress, anxiety, and pressure. Your son, has he ever dealt with it, and how were you involved?
Before I hand this over to Hugh, I want to say that I absolutely agree with respect to making sure that you're there. It's important. Our children love to look up in the stand. We have 3 who went to higher education, and I actually had a spreadsheet with their games and mapped out, okay, we're here today, in the morning we go to Michigan, this one we go to Cleveland, and that was so important. There were times that I found Hugh, we knew that they really needed to see us. Hugh would leave and drive down to Cleveland, as an example, and just show up at a game. And our daughter loved it, to look up in the stands and see that Dad's here. And yeah, there was food. There was always food that was there. But, I think it's really, really important.
Well, stress management is probably one of the biggest things in sports, or for your kids in sports, because I think we as just human beings on a whole, we know when we compete, losing is very deflating. And sometimes as parents, you don't have to be the coach, you don't have to talk about the game, but sometimes just conversing with them to bring them back, like reset them, is a huge thing. So if I'm not coaching them, usually I just take the position of I'm the reset guy, I'm the psychologist guy. So, you know, when they lose a game, I just kind of, you know, that was nice, you know, you did well there, you know, because that's all they really need is to be reset for the next game. And I think that that's a big part of just helping them how to manage, you know, the adversity of losing and winning and making sure it's not all about the game, the winning piece. Sometimes, you know, you want to win, but at the same time, the process, it's a process to learn how to win. And talking them through that process is very important, right? And just them knowing that you're there to love them whether they lost or win is a big stress relief for all of us, right?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Reset. I like that. That's another cool message. And I actually, on that note, want to say those buttons that you're wearing, a lot of it, they all were inspired by Donna Best there too. So you're wearing a Donna Best original right there too. So, my question was, what happens if you don't know how to cook? Anyways, next. Very well. Awesome. Next question, and I know this actually came in through the internet as well too. So, how do you get your child, so how did you get your son focused and motivated to study while he played basketball?
Well, it's synonymous. To play basketball, you must study. So for me, one of the things, like I remember, because he's always kind of been a good student, and I recall one time when he did transition into grade 9, and he was becoming like very engaged in the game a lot. And you know, that's a big transition for kids, grades 8 to 9. So sometimes, you know, they get caught in peer pressure. So it's like going from a space of 200 people to a space of 1,100, 1,200, 2,000 people. So sometimes that adjustment is very difficult. And I recall he kind of got caught up in the whole basketball thing. And one of his classes, he came in with a grade that I didn't feel was acceptable. And I was letting him know that you can't get into the schools that you would need to go to with this type of a grade. And when he got the grade, I went and I spoke with his coach and I said, I don't need my child to know basketball. I need my child to get good grades. I'll teach him basketball if that's the case, right? And I recall my son looking and saying, well, you know, I passed that. Some of the other guys didn't pass. And I said, well, that's not the conversation here. The conversation is there's a standard that you should hold yourself to. And so he said, well, I guess you're not going to be playing basketball for the next little while until this gets to where it's supposed to get to. But he assumed me saying him not playing basketball was you're not on the team. No, that's not the case. You're going to every practice. You're going to motivate your teammates. You're going to sit on the bench, and if I see you have a sulk on your face, that's a problem. So you're going to be a cheerleader. You're going to make sure that you're at every study hall. You're going to make sure that you do all the intangibles. You're going to go and train in the morning just like you've been doing all the time, but you still can't play in any games. And it was interesting because I used to go to like old man runs, I used to go to runs with the older guys. And he used to come and play on the sideline. And I recall we went and I'm playing, and usually he used to shoot around on the rims on the side, but he had homework. So he was assuming he could shoot around on the side. And I was like, no, you need to sit in the stands, do your homework, and watch us play. If that's, and it's interesting because once that had happened, he never got a bad grade again because he loves to play the game so much that he's willing to do what it takes to be able to play the game. And I think that that's important. I think it's important to use it for what it's worth. So.
I agree with all that. And I love my niece here. Speak to that.
So just talking a bit about that, Aaron always used to say, or he still does say that, don't let
your studies or school be the reason that you're not playing the game. So it's all been said, but just make sure that your marks are good, you're focused in school, and getting the grades that you need, because your education is first. You're always a student first. So in our family, like we mentioned before, like we always studied together, which was a big motivator, and it kept us all focused. And when you're studying among other people, it really helps. It gives you like it helps like inspire you and let you keep going, rather than just sitting there by yourself. So we were always encouraged to study together, and when one had an exam, everyone was studying because everyone had an exam. So that was really helpful. It just helps give you like a really good learning environment, and then you can also like bounce ideas off of each other. I know Aaron always used to help me with my math, so that was great to have like a tutor right there to help me. So that was amazing. Yeah, and so also just make sure to make time for like fun things like basketball and stuff, or dance, or whatever it is that you're interested in. Make sure you get your work done first, and then you can go and have fun. And yeah. Fantastic.
Thank you. Were there any, and this is the second part of the question, technology is a big part of what we're dealing with today, so that is a distraction for some. Were there any distractions that negatively affected, your son's well-being or their studies? And how did you handle it?
Well, for Aaron, his thing was video games. And so, yeah, he would play 24 hours, 7 days a week if we let him. But that was not happening. So he knew that he had, only on the weekends, he would be able to play. And if I saw that his assignments were up to date, the homework was done, work was getting done, and sometimes I even made him study ahead. So if he knew that the following week they were going to be starting something new, a new chapter, then I would make him study ahead. Like, look at that chapter now, so that when you go to class next week, at least it's like, it's not totally brand new. It's, it's already in there. So just little things like that. So he knew with the video games, if his stuff was not done, there was no video games happening. And he was already limited anyway to begin with just on the weekends. So he only got to play the video games on the weekend. You're a video, yes, I can see he's a gamer, right? I knew it from the look on the face. Yeah, so it was only weekend play, and that was only if the homework and the assignments and everything else was in order. So that was the rule.
Thank you.
Sorry, one thing I'll add as well with social media, especially right now, something later on when Aaron adapted was just on his own, I guess just from having it instilled in him with the video games, is whatever you find you're being distracted with, you might have to take it upon yourself. Like, as your kid gets older, they're in university, stay away from it. It's hard, we're all on our phones all day, but down to the more serious times, whether it be school-wise or basketball-wise, sometimes just take a complete break from it. Aaron would just black out from it for a month at a time, depending on what the situation is.
Actually, TV was the distraction in our house, because the hours that Hugh and I worked, there was about an hour and a half gap that the kids were home by themselves. So they would race home to watch TV. And then, 2 minutes before we would get home, they'd be running around doing what they had to do. And Casey even has a story about how he would jump on his bed and his book was upside down, but he was pretending to be reading it, right? And they would hear Hugh had a Golf, so it was a loud vehicle, and they would hear it getting off the highway, so that was their key. So we took TV out of our house for a year and a half, believe it or not, a year and a half. And we had motivated them and said, okay, well, we'll take it out and we'll save money and we'll buy a big screen TV, because that's when those big, they were like furniture, those TVs were coming in. So, we went and we put a deposit down, and that's what we did. And I'll tell you, we had so much family time, we played games, we read together, and to today, we rarely watch TV because we just got used to what we were doing. And it was, I think, a great thing. I was the one who rebelled a little bit, because this is true, because I said, I like the Learning Channel. There's certain things that I like, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. days. And we originally said a year, and before we, blinked, it was a year and a half, and we hadn't missed it at all. So that's kind of what we did. And it worked. It worked.
Fantastic. Awesome. One of the questions we get often is, how do I talk to my child about important life decisions? It could be about post-secondary, what do you want to do in life? So how did you talk to your son about important subjects like that, and when did you start those discussions?
I'm a talker, and with my kids, I believe communication is a key component. So I think it's important to have dialogue with your kids. Not dialogue where you're speaking adult to child, but person to person. And I think that, but there's got to be established rules to that conversation or that communication. Again, I'm not going to speak to my son like I would speak to this gentleman, because me and this gentleman are adults. My son is my son, right? But I'm going to speak at his level and, have open dialogue so he feels he had the right to express himself. And, if he disagrees with something, so he can let me know his disagreement and stuff. And I think that that's important, because with communication is how they start growing their vocabulary and growing their sense of respect. You'll respect what I say, or and so on and so forth. And it also leads to a lot of truth. Like, they feel comfortable telling you their truth. And that's one thing that I can kind of say, that with us and our children, we do have a friendship, like a friendship conversations. Like, that's the way we dialogue. And that's important. In that breath, they learn to make the right choices, because they have been given from a young age the opportunities to make choices. And again, as an adult, if I say, don't put your hand on the stove, and they are like, well, why? Well, I'll explain, it's going to burn you. And if they say, well, I want to see what it feels like, as a parent, I would, okay, I'll see what it feels like. And I believe that that kind of education sometimes far outweighs, dictatorship. Right, so.
For our family, we usually have family discussions, family sessions. Sometimes they're therapy sessions. And to this day, it's an ongoing thing. So we've always had the conversation going, and all the kids would be involved. So the little ones would sit and listen, and then the older siblings, whatever issues they were having and decisions that needed to be made as far as school, the family would get together and discuss and talk about it. So I don't know what you add.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything you said thus far. Like, well, I'm not a parent, but there's no right way in any of these situations to go about it. A big thing is just leaving that open line of communication, having it available, letting them know, I'm your parent, and I can be your buddy in this moment, you can come to me. Believe it or not, I wasn't that talkative growing up, but just through our breakfasts that we would go to, like, that was our code word for one of our little meetings, to have a little therapy session. Good food, once again. But like, even through those, just seeing everyone interact, whenever I was faced with a challenge or anything that I needed to communicate and I didn't know where to go, it was almost like, all right, I could go to these people I don't know, or I just saw Aaron and Sierra have a conversation. It should be easy to go to everybody and call a breakfast, have one of these meetings. So that, as well as just the simple pros and cons, like literally, whether you write it down, sometimes you got to visualize it and make a T-chart. It's so simple, but when the pros outweigh the cons, you kind of know it can lead you in a direction. Sometimes you need that approach just to see it. You can't, when something's down on paper in front of you, it's kind of hard to deny it, right? So to each situation, they're all individual, but that's what's worked with us in this case.
a situation where you, as a parent, had to step back and let your son take the lead or make a decision for himself? And what happened?
Okay. Well, I can remember Aaron had to make a decision of changing his high school. He was at Sir Oliver Moet in Scarborough, and he had reached a point with basketball. The grades were good, so that was never an issue. And he wanted a little higher level of training. And so Eastern Commerce had a legacy built over there, basketball legacy. And Aaron was approached by the coach from Eastern Commerce High School. And so he came and spoke to me and ran it by the family. But ultimately, he was thinking of changing from Moet to go to Eastern Commerce. And they also had some really great business courses as well at Eastern Commerce. There was one high skills business major, and he was very interested in that because at that point he wanted to get into business after high school. So I made him give me all the pros. So one was smaller class sizes. So the class sizes were smaller, which was going to be a plus as well. And they had that business program that his school didn't provide. And then, of course, the big plus for him was the basketball training. It was an elite level of training for basketball. So I told him, well, you realize you're further away from Eastern Commerce. It's going to take you, we're at the end of Scarborough, so it's going to take you an hour plus to get to Eastern Commerce. That's down at like Greenwood and Danforth. So I said, you also have to think about that. Are you willing to make that sacrifice? Because you're going to be up early, because I'm not going to be the one to drive you to school. You have to take that responsibility because I work. So I laid it out to him and I said, okay, you're the one that has to make that decision. And so he did make the decision to change schools and go to Eastern Commerce, and that worked out great as well. The marks stayed good, and we're all happy. So that worked out great.
So I just wanted to add to that, when Ryan was talking about like our family discussions and everything that we would have, I feel that a lot of times all of like the questions or different decisions that had to be made, whether it was changing schools or just like anything that we had, we would all talk about it, but I still felt like it was my decision, and I think that everyone was still able to feel like the decision was being made by themselves, and it was just guided by our parents and by the older siblings and cousins and everybody, and we could learn from each one's experience. So something Ryan would go through or Aaron would go through or anybody, I would like listen and really like intently listen to how they handled their situation, and then if when I was faced with that situation, I was better able to handle that on my own. And yeah, it was just, I really felt that we were guided by our parents, but we were also able to make decisions, and they supported us. No matter what the decision was, they would support us and help us through it and make sure we understood the challenges that we would face with that, and they would just really help us out in that regard.
I'm a firm believer that one of the gifts we have in life is choice, making a choice. So I always kind of instilled in them the value of making the right choice, so the choice is going to be up to you. Like I go back to even that stove scenario. So when Kaza came to me at first with, he had wanted to go to the States to play basketball. I remember in grade 9, because that's when the major migration of a lot of his classmates were going down to prep schools in the States to play basketball. And he came in grade 9 and he was like, I'd like to go, and I informed him that I don't think he was mature enough at that point, because if you have to be told to do your homework, you have to, there's certain things you have to be reminded on, where if you're not at home, who's going to remind you on that scenario, right? So I recall we had the conversation and I got him to write me a letter of why he thought, and I said, well, that letter didn't really make sense. So you need to go back and we'll give it a year. And then if by the end of grade 9, grade 10, going grade 11, at that stage you would be mature enough, hopefully. And if you can present me some kind of a documentation of your plan, and then it's your choice. And this he did, and his grades were strong, and he decided that he wanted to go to North Carolina to play in a prep school there. And that was his choice. Again, as parents, we're going to support because that's the choice we are in, right? And it's a situation where he made a decision to go. Was it an easy journey for him? I don't think so, but again, he made a choice, he went. We supported him because of the environment he was going into as well. Was a Christian-based school and all that kind of stuff, which kind of aligns with our values and those type of things. And he, you know, in hindsight, like he became a very mature person through that journey. He had to learn how to cook, had to learn how to maintain himself, and he had to learn to, you know, like I'm a firm believer of when you go into something, you should kind of maybe sometimes burn the bridge behind you because you should keep your eye on the prize, my friend. You know, so in that situation, he kept his eye on it. But now, in hindsight, he has told me some of the roads he has had to go through to be where he is today, and it's made him a very, very, very strong young man. And you know, so I guess when we make choices and set goals, as long as we get the opportunity to pursue them, usually it turns out in the best interest because it's your choice. And you have to kind of live with your choices, you know, so.
I just want to add that when Kaza came in grade 9, I absolutely was not having it. And when he came back in grade 10, he said the same thing. Even after the letter, I absolutely was not having it because I, as a mother, it was a tough thing for me to say, okay, my youngest, I have 2 older daughters, they were already in university, and now I'm going to lose him to go, which I knew was going to be grades 10, 11, 12 type thing. So he was going to be, and then university. So basically I was saying, I'm going to be in a, you know, empty nest. So it was really tough on me. I really rebelled on that one. And then I had to stop and say, you know, this is something that Kaza wants, and I have to support it, and I'll support him as he goes through all of these challenges. And trust me, there were a lot of challenges, there were a lot of ups, there were a lot of downs, and we just made sure that we were there for all of them. And the drive to North Carolina was very long, and but we made it, and we made it as often as we could. And again, it kind of goes back to, you know, we make these sacrifices for our children and support them. It's really important. Even though you may not like it, you got to support them and have faith that they know the direction that they're heading in.
That's cool. Thank you. That's awesome. And I know that personally as a parent too, that's tough, knowing when to let go and to guide and sometimes accept the choices even though it's not what we want. And that's a tough one. Thank you. A couple more questions before we go to Q&A. So what are 3 pieces of advice or tips you would share with raising parents who are first raising elementary school age children, and then second of all, teenagers? I mean teenagers. Teenagers.
Well, it's not easy. I mean, you're all parents maybe, or about to be, or yeah, it's not easy, but it's actually one of the most rewarding jobs ever. And we've been blessed. We've been blessed to have these amazing human beings in our lives, and we have to do the best that we can. Sometimes we don't always know, you know, the answers, but you do the best you can. And I'm gonna get emotional. But family is everything, and it's worth it. As tough as it is, as tough as teenagers can be, it's worth it. It is worth it. For me and our family, ours was just communication. Communicate, and it starts from a young age. Like, you can't wait until they're 6, 7, 8. It starts from really young, and you've got to let them know, respect yourself, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions, speak up. You make sure that the communication is open in the family, make sure that they're comfortable coming to you and talking and saying what's on their mind. And sometimes for us as parents, I find for me, I had to listen a little bit more. Sometimes when Aaron would tell me stories or say things, or this happened at school, I would have a tendency to want to jump in and give advice and say, no, don't do that. But sometimes you just need to listen as well too, and just, yeah, listen, communicate. I think that's key.
So middle school, I think support, being there, being visible, you know, let them know that they can't beat you in the sport that you're trying to teach them, you know, things like that. So that's one of the things. High school, you want to keep them close, make sure they're your friend, make sure they trust you, you trust them, give them a little degree of trust to let them spread their wings a little bit because they're moving into that adult stage.
Yeah.
But parenting, we go to school, we get degrees to learn how to be a doctor, we go get degrees to learn how to be a dentist and to be we get all sorts of education to learn how to do things. But the hardest job on earth, we get no pre-advanced training. We get 9 months and a little bit of enjoyment in the beginning of it, and then you get another 28, whatever amount of years to figure out this book that keeps changing pages, the characters change, and it's like doodly doodly doo, you know. 1 minute you have Superman, then the next minute you have the villain. So, and it's all the same character. So it's just learning to take the journey and realizing to get as much education that you possibly can and love them to death, because you can't stop reading the book. So that's kind of the way it works. You can't close the book, just keep reading.
I love that analogy. That is awesome. Supervillain one I'm talking about. No, just kidding. Wonderful. If you had to give other parents one advice and tip about parent involvement, which is really why we're here, it's about how do we get involved and stay involved, what would it be?
I'd say show up. Just show up. Just be a conscious parent and show up. Just show up, support. If you can't be there, then, you know, the village, someone else from the village, have them show up, because it does, as we said in the beginning, it does take a village. And if you can't be there, if they need someone to talk to, if you can't be at the game, there's a godparent, there's a niece, a nephew, a cousin, auntie, uncle, just a friend, a co-worker, just because family doesn't necessarily have to all be blood. Family is family. Can be, you know, friends, neighbors, longtime friends, but just show up. Just show up and be a conscious parent and support.
So to add to that, I would say, from what I've learned and from what I want to model myself off of as well, like it would, you know, there is situations that aren't as ideal where maybe you might not be able to show up or have someone to show up. The key word that I'm going to model myself off of is support by any means. As you said, if you can't be at the game, have a pizza party to watch their game tape, or you know, be the first person to call them afterwards, but show that you're there, you're involved. Don't just, you know, how's your game? Good game? All right, cool. really be involved and show interest, so they know that they're doing something worthwhile that transcends beyond just themselves.
That's right. I just wanted to add something to that as well. I think that one of the most important things that my family did for me as well is like Ryan was saying, if you can't be there, then just show your support as well. Like even a text message saying congratulations on that A+ that you got. Like it means the world to me. Like all that hard. Like it doesn't matter how small the achievement it is. Yeah, so we also have like a family WhatsApp group, and so it's really great because everyone, like you can share your achievement, and then everybody can, everyone shows their support and that they're proud of you, and that it just makes that thing that you stressed over for so long feel like it was worth it, and that people are proud of you, and it helps ease stress and anxiety and stuff as well. And I just think that that was such a great thing that, you know, even Aaron would, like, I was always a dancer, and Aaron would come to my games, even, or my dance recitals and stuff, and it just meant a lot that no matter like how busy each one of us was, we still made the effort. Even if you couldn't be there all the time, you'd get a text message and be like, I heard you did amazing today, like congratulations, just something like that. And that was just something that I think was really, really helpful, and it helps you stay focused on your goal and be able to achieve it.
It's funny that you say about the WhatsApp. We have that as well, and technology has brought us to this place. But
Yeah.
back when our kids are older, girls are 29 and 28, and we were younger when we started. So communication has always been something that we've had to, you know, it's big in our family, really important. And prior to technology, I used to send them a message every day. It was just a little word of encouragement. And my daughter, who was in Cleveland at the time, she would put them on Post-it notes and put them all over her house, in her apartment. And when there was some days that she was feeling down, she would go and reflect on one. And that was something that we did. We've always had communication. So I think just be there, love them. They actually, you know, we're a very close family, and it's surprising when I'm sitting up here how many things that we do the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, this is our first time meeting, which is sad because our children have been involved for so long, which, you know, and so you don't have to do that. Reach out to each other, big community, and again, support and love your children.
In support of that, the reaching out and the supporting, we compete against each other, which is okay in sports, but we need to always kind of understand that what's on the court is just on the court. Once it's done, the game is over. It's time to give some head nods and, you know, handshakes, and maybe if there's a close pub, if you go to the pub, and, you know, and have a few pints and talk about the game. Because at the end of the day, it's all about community. It's about engaging all of our kids into having a good, healthy life and becoming better citizens, right? Like, I think that's really what it boils down to at the end of the day. You know, so it is what it is, you know. We get in what we get out what we put in. And that's kind of the mantra that I would say in parenting. So, you know, there's no perfect family, there's no, and we're up here talking about the positive. Don't think that I haven't had my moments with my kids where you're, you know, sitting crying with your wife and saying, oh my God, is this kid ever gonna be anything? you know what I mean? Like, there's those moments too, but it's a journey, and this is the kind of the reality of it, right? So you understand that there's going to be crying moments, and there's going to be moments that you just wonder, like, is life real when you're just crying and sobbing? And like, I'm a big guy, so when you see me, you know, just, you know, and it's because you're happy. Like, it doesn't make sense, you know? So sometimes you got to just kind of roll with it, because that's what it is. It's like, it's a journey, right? So don't think that it's all going to be, I'm not up here saying it's all good things. It's a journey, and when the journey is low, you still love. When the journey is high, you laugh, you heat it up and just embrace it. Because those are the ones that keep you going, right? So.
Fantastic. For those of you that don't know, and I'm still learning, Kaza and Aaron played on opposite teams, right? Through high school as well as university. So they were always rivals, so to speak, right? And on the courts. And so then to come together under the 905s and play together, there was an article in the Toronto Star, I think we posted it, where they highlighted the two, Canadian athletes and how they've come together. And so, on March 10th, we'll be having them share their stories too, because that's not easy. That's not easy as a kid. So thank you. I do have another question that came through the internet that I thought was great too, and then we'll go over to Q&A. Actually two. There's a person who is a single parent and has their child only every other weekend. How do I positively influence my son's life and future? Is the question that came through the website.
In support of what Ms. Best was saying in regards to, there is no such thing as this, well there is in the terminology of a single parent, but you're never a singular entity, right? That's why I'm a firm believer in it takes a village to raise a child. You have so many resources. I mean, make your circle tight, but make yourself a circle, and make sure you get to know people, reach out to people that you feel comfortable engaging in, whether it's to coach your child, to tutor your child, to just, if they're going away and you're unable to go away, that they might be willing to have your child accompany them. Because at the end of the day, the saying goes, no man is an island, no person is an island. And you really don't want to take on the burden of this journey that we have as human beings alone. No, I don't want to do that. So you're never a single entity. It's funny, this comedian now, everybody's kind of looking at him in a quirky way. One of our Canadian guys, the guy that played The Mask.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, like he's got this new philosophy where he's like saying, I'm everyone and everyone is me and we all are connected. And that's, as much as, Hollywood is trying to put him out there as quirky and he's lost his numbers, but I'm just saying, I really kind of attest to what he's feeling right now, because I do feel connected to everybody in this room right now. Maybe it's through my son, but I feel connected to you. And I think that that's the way, as a single parent, you should try. My hat's off to anyone that rears a child on their own. Because there's times when I look at my wife and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that you are here right now. Because when you can't take it, somebody else is able to take that moment, and it's, this is why I think if you're a parent of, a single parent, it is important for you to build your network of friends, build your circle, and, make sure it's a trusting circle, that you have people that you can rely on. But you're not alone, you're never alone, so.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something to that. I can't speak as a parent, but I speak from my own personal experience. So my parents are separated, and I saw my dad maybe once or twice a week, and I never ever felt like I was in one place half the time, in one place another half of the time. I felt like I felt completely full. It was a wonderful experience, and my dad's family made such a big effort to, when I was there, even if it was for a couple hours, they made a big effort to make that the best 3 hours of my life. And my cousins would come for the ride to come pick me up. Whether the ride was a half hour, my cousin siblings, whether the ride was a half hour, we would play music in the car, we would sing, we would dance, we would just have so much fun. The smallest little things, they made the most amazing experience for me. And I just feel like, I feel full. I never felt like I was raised by one parent or the other. I just felt like my family is my family and they love me, and it was just, I feel like a big thing is just, again, being there, supporting your kids, and just showing them how loved they are. And yeah, so it's just, and then technology also helps. Like now, if you can text them, you can use WhatsApp, you can use all these different things so that you're always there. You can always send them a text message, letting them know that you're thinking about them. And yeah, it just, that was a great experience for me.
Thank you. Tips on how do you turn an introvert and shy child into a fierce competitor? And I don't know, were Kaza and Aaron more introverts or shy? Or are any of you there? Are you fierce?
I'll take this one.
Ryan's laughing. There's a story coming.
No, just as I said, like before, like growing up, I was one of the more quiet. I was actually, if anything, inspired by how open Aaron was, and Aaron was just a character growing up. But outside of us, he might have been viewed as an introvert, just keeping to himself, keeping focused all the time. I think just getting out there more often, like for myself, heading out to games and things on my own, and being immersed amongst other people. This is one of the rare times where not having family around actually helped a little bit as well. Just for the fact that you're out there and you're immersed just amongst your peers, right? So you're going to have to learn how to compete at a high level for yourself. You got to do things for yourself and with your team and with your peers. If it's basketball that you're talking about on a competitive level, right? So over time you develop that hunger, you develop that commonality amongst you and all the others around you, and that just becomes its own language. That it might only be reflected on the court, and as soon as the game's done, you know, you might go right back into your shell, straight to schoolwork, whatever the case may be, but there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, right? It's just a matter of channeling it at the right times.
My oldest daughter, I guess she could classify as an introvert. My youngest, or Kaza, we can classify as an introvert. My middle is extrovert on every level, you know. But what I found was with my oldest daughter, because she was an introvert, sports really helped her to come outside of herself. Just being in a team environment, and when she started learning her teammates and things like that, I found that she became a little bit more vocal. When she's on the court, she just kind of learned to kind of come out because of having to communicate during the game, you know. Cut, or whatever she had to do, those things seemed to help her in becoming more of an extrovert. And Kaza was kind of the same way. Kaza is very quiet, but once he gets on the court, he's still a little bit non-vocal on the court, but he begins to trust the people that are on his team, and that's usually becomes his conversational support. And I think, you know, that's one of the things that you could use sports for, is if the child is introverted, it helps them to have a group to communicate with. If they're extroverted, it helps them to have a group that they can feel they're controlling, but it helps them to have that opportunity to do all the communicating, you know, so I think it's good from a sports standpoint.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you. So, that concludes our portion of the questions. We'd like to open it up to the floor to ask questions. So, John.
So, the one thing that I can't wrap my head around is how you cope with your child, not just going to university, but going to the States in university. We have, like, especially in the news that you hear what's going on now, we have bigotry here, we have racism here, but there's no comparison in the U.S. And so, sending your child to the U.S. for university, where's their safety net? How do you, I mean, that would drive me nuts.
Did everyone hear that question?
Yeah.
Just in case? Okay. So, Kaza went to the States for college. So the question is, how did you as parents feel, support with Kaza going away, and in this case to the U.S. where that safety net isn't there, And the States is, in some places a different place. The inclusivity isn't always there, the safety net there. How did you deal with that emotionally as parents? Did I get it right, John?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Basically the race factor.
And the race factor.
Because here we kind of accept everybody, and even though the U.S. says they do, they don't. Look at Trump. So.
Well, that's a whole other seminar.
I agree.
But I think it's about the emotional part of letting go and being comfortable with it, and I can relate to that. So you can do that.
Having your child go away on scholarship, usually that's a process that your child would have already been prepared for, especially at the university level. So you want to make sure they are mature enough already before you would make that decision. As far as trying to teach your kids about, the adversity, the different diversities and the different issues they're going to run into, whether it's racism or sexism or whatever it may be, they're going to run in, but that's just life, whether it's in this side of the border or that side of the border. So it's more teaching your child, and you're hoping that education is what's going to give them the emotional intelligence and the critical thinking skills to be able to overcome those situations when they present themselves. Now, when they go to university, well, for Kaza, when he signed at Illinois State, one of my clause in his was that they would be able to get us down there a certain few times of the year as parents, right? So that was part of our contract and agreement with them, and that was upheld. With our daughters, Michigan State and Cleveland State, we spent 6 months in a car, if you want to calculate the hours. Did we become better people for each other? Yeah, we talked a lot. When you're in a car for 6 months with your spouse, you learn to communicate. So we did a lot of communicating. So that's just traveling to games, coming back, and those type of things. So, when it's your child's dream and it's your child's goal, you make the necessary adjustments that you have to, and it's a wonderful experience for them. And sometimes even when they're finished playing, it's hard for them to let go off of it, just because of the adversities they go through and things like that. Because it's what builds them, right? It's what creates character.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add, or
I can add
any other questions?
What I can also add to that is it is something that we'd have to deal with, and as Father was saying there, is in any case, north or south of the border, wherever your child may end up, there's certain realities that are just there, right? So just making sure that they're well equipped, well aware, conscious of any adversity that they may face. It may be, as you said, race, sex, it could be your shoe size, it could be a bunch of things, to be honest, right? So just a matter of being aware of it, being equipped, being strong enough, and as he said, Kaza came out a better man because of those things, right? So, essentially that's all I'll say. As well, not necessarily just going to university, throughout high school, depending on what opportunities come to your child, they might have to travel to play for Team Canada somewhere. So, just instilling these things in them early so it's not a big shock at 16. Say, for instance, Aaron went to China, like a number of different places, right, where you don't know what you're walking into. We hear a lot about the U.S., but we don't hear about all of these other places where you may end up. So it all starts at home, I would say, definitely.
Thanks, Ryan. So it is about starting talking early and having those open discussions and letting them know who they are and supporting them. Wonderful. There was a question right here. Okay. Okay, so the question is, have either one of your sons been bullied, and how did they handle it? And even more so, how did you as parents support that? Support them?
why they keep turning this mic off. I don't know. No, but I guess every one of us in some way in our lives have felt like we were being treated unfairly or being bullied in some kind of degree. I do recall, like, my kids are very close-knit to each other, and Kaza did run into a bullying situation when he was in middle school, but his sister straightened it out.
So you build your alliances early. Start siblings.
Wow. Well, kids are bullied. It just happens. It's sad, but we have to set the example. And like I said, it starts from home. You have to let the kids know what they're going to be facing. You have to make it a comfortable environment for them to talk to you, and you have to question them as well. You have to question them, just ask questions, and you can tell the difference in their demeanor. When they come home, you can see a difference. How do they look? Are they excited? Are they a little happy? You can tell if there's something going on, but you do have to have a conversation. You have to ask questions and listen to them and hear what they're not saying. And you also have to know who they're hanging with as well. Know who the kids are that they're hanging with and know where they are. That was a big thing with me. When you're not just leaving the house to say, Mom, I'll be right back in 5 minutes. No, you're not going to be back in 5 minutes. You're not going anywhere. Because I need to know where you're going. Where are you going? Who are you going with? And then I might even drive you there to make sure and to see. So you have to be conscious. You have to make sure that communication is there. Talk to them and find out what's going on with them and know who they're hanging with, who they're talking to.
It's being aware of who their influences are and their role models. So role models, fantastic. Great. Before I come to you, I know there was a question back in the middle here. Is there one? Did you have a question? Okay. Yeah. And then I'll come to you. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the scenario. It might happen, may not happen, but your child, your son, has a great game, right? He is the best. He had a last-minute shot that won the game. He's the greatest, the best, right? But he's getting into that show-off attitude. That's taking out of the family, to the school environment, right? And I see a very fine line between what he can do. On one hand, if he's moving on the bad side, this behavior, you still want to help him grow as a balanced and respectful adult, right? So you want to stop that. But on the other hand, could be that he needs encouragement in that direction because he needs to build up that self-confidence. Hey, I did great, best, I'm doing good, right? If you experience this, how did you deal with this, or if you did not, what would be your take on this one? Which way would you go? How do you take the right decision in this case?
So if I could just repeat the question, and I think I understand. So if you have a child that's done really well on the court, and he's feeling really proud, and that proud and pride transfers into other parts of his life, yet you still want them to be humble, respectful. How do you balance that pride, that ego, with the other part? Is that the gist of the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's where don't get caught up in the bright lights
There you go.
comes from. I've been saying that to all the kids in our family. Don't get caught up in the bright lights. Stay focused, keep your eye on the prize. You're only as good as your last game. So if you're going to be showboating, if you make a shot and you feel like you're hot stuff, then you better be able to do that every game after that. So don't get caught up in the bright lights is what I use for that. And we have so many eyes. I'm always telling Aaron, eyes are always on you. The family's eyes are on you. So the moment that we're seeing an inkling of showboating and carrying on and thinking that you're hot stuff, somebody's gonna come to you after the game and ask you, what is your issue? What was that all about? So for us, again, it's the family. We're close-knit, watching you, making sure that you're staying on the right track, and making sure that you're not getting caught up in the bright lights.
You don't believe that's going to affect his self-confidence, right?
No.
Well, if they work hard, he knows he's got to work on his skill. So there's nothing wrong with, and these kids are smart. They know when they're out there. Like my mom or my sister says, they're just feeling themselves or just smelling themselves. That's a West Indian thing. You know what I mean? Where they're starting to think that they're hot stuff. But you keep their feet on the ground. They know the difference when they know they have to work hard. They know when we say, good job, son, but we're not telling you, go out there and just spread it all over everybody's face and say, yeah, I'm hot, I'm good. They know it takes hard work. So when they're busy and focused on working on the craft, and then they've got the circle telling them, okay, that was good, that was not so good, we need to work on that. You need to be aware of your attitude. And that's another big thing with the family as well that we're always saying. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with this attitude? Like, get it straight, get it together. This is not gonna work for us. It's not gonna work for us. So we're always there in the middle of it all, watching and not afraid to communicate. You don't be afraid to talk to the kids and tell them. You don't have to be afraid. You can tell them positive and reinforced positive words, but there's a time too where you need to get a little bit louder to make sure that they get where you're coming from and you're serious.
Some tough
so
love.
the showboating, once they know the family is watching, we've had our discussion, you need to work on that. That's not working for us. That's the way it is with us.
Just to add something quickly here, I will say yes. Don't get caught up in the bright lights. It's very simple. Like it's easy to do that, as you said. You know, if your self-confidence is getting up there, and you know the child is getting a little bit better, that's one thing. A big thing Donna said was you're only as good as your last game, right? So you're not trying to be the best person out there. You're trying to be the best version of you, right? So there's so many things that are negative can come from showboating. So you don't really want to do that. More so, you want to just be better than you were last game. And a very big thing, coming back down to peers, you don't want to hang out with a bunch of yes men. And when I say yes men, I mean those guys around you who no matter what, yes, yeah, you did that, you're the sick. That's good, but you more so want to hang out with good game, you know, that was good what you did type of people. Therefore, you're not going to feel more, you're going to feel less inclined to show off. You're more humble and you're more grateful for your performance, but you're even more willing to go back and work twice as hard to maintain that, or sustain that level of that performance moving forward, right? So.
Well, I think there's a difference between, I see where you're coming from, and I think there's a difference between cockiness and confidence. And I think as long as you're emphasizing confidence, like if you hit a big shot in the end of a game, you should feel, you obviously have either put the time in to have the courage to make that shot, the effort, and have earned the respect of your team to be able to give you that shot. So that's a responsibility on its own. So if you're confident in taking it and you make it, you should feel good about yourself. But then there's the cockiness of if you're actually pointing out to all your teammates that they could have never won that game without you making that shot, then that becomes cockiness. So I think it's trying to be able to realize if your child is exhibiting cockiness for you to put them in check and kind of say, hey, you know, sure you hit that big shot, but if that person didn't give you that pass, You may never have been that guy. And sometimes that's just putting them into perspective. And then when they may not be seeing that perspective at that moment because you're outside looking and they're inside, right? So it's just kind of sometimes giving them that reflective image of the situation. And I think after a few times of getting it, then they understand the benefits of humility and the benefits of being humble, right? So, but you never want to kill confidence, never. Motivate your child to want to win. Winning is a good thing.
Thank you. Do you still have a question? Yeah?
How you as a parent deal with a long distance relationship with your child, mailbag, you get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning, then disturbed, then stressed, emotional, they want to come home, how do you deal with that?
So did everyone hear the question? If your son or child's far away and at 2 in the morning you get a call that they're distressed, they've got anxiety, pressure, stress, how do you deal with that? So we have 5 minutes to do 2 more questions. It's kids' time.
Well, for Aaron, he wasn't away at school, so Aaron, his education was all here in Canada, and university was Ryerson. But after he left Ryerson, he did a season in Lithuania. So he was playing there, and that was tough. that was tough. It wasn't that close. That was pretty far. The time change, yeah. But we've had many phone conversations. We've had a lot of phone conversations, just adapting to the different style of coaching, adapting to being that far away from home. So we just made a conscious effort of phone calls. So it was like every Sunday or every 2 or 3 days, we were on the phone talking. And sometimes I cried, yeah, because you want to be there, you want to hug them, you want to just be there and just talk. We just made a lot of phone calls, a lot of talking.
Myself, I believe that a part of what they go through being away from home is kind of necessary. With Skype and texting, and it's just always keeping that line of communication open. And when your child reaches the levels that they're playing at university and college, you'll kind of learn to understand that sometimes coaches are very hard on them. Not for any reason other than for their betterment, but sometimes people don't understand what's in their best interest. They're going to go against it. They're going to push against it, right? And in that process, because they're young sometimes, they go through that process and they're going through emotional things that they don't understand yet. So what we usually do is just try and reset the button, whether it's through a Skype call. But sometimes, like you said, it reaches the breaking point. I'll give you one of my examples of a breaking point was my middle daughter, TK, had called me, and she was in a relationship at the time. School work level was really high. This was her second year of just playing defense. So when you play 2 years of defense and you never get on the court, you kind of start understanding that my legs are burning for no reason. But this day she was just having a major breakdown, and like you said, it was one of these 2 o'clock in the morning, or it was the call came in at 2 in the morning, and it's a 4-hour drive to Cleveland, so she would have been talking to us earlier. So I just jumped in my car, and you go downstairs, and I called her, and she said, "Hey Dad, it's great to hear you, how are you?" And I said, "I'm downstairs, come open the door," right? And it's little things like that sometimes you just do. Not that I'm going to make a 4-hour trip every day of the week, but that moment made her realize that, wow, like it's a eureka moment for her that I'm supported, and then she gets, after you're there for a couple days, you go out for dinner, and talk, and then she's back to normal. with the person that she's with. And maybe you don't want her to be with, you know. And then you go back to normal, right? But it is what it is, right? So you do. Sometimes you got to do those things, and that's all. That's what it is. Right? So.
I just wanted to add something really quick to that. I can't speak from a parent's perspective, but from my perspective, when I call my parents or aunts or anybody, sometimes I just want to talk to someone and just tell them what's going on. And you don't have to have the best advice or know what's the right thing to say. Just listen and just comfort. Like, just having that voice is comforting, and just knowing that that foundation that is back home, even if you're away, is still there, and that you're not alone. Even though you might feel like you're alone, you're not alone. And just literally just having their voice, their comfort, just familiar words, from like just having that makes a big difference. And you, like, not knowing what to say or having the best advice, that doesn't matter. It's just being able to call you at 2 o'clock in the morning and know that you're there and listening and there for me. That, to me, that means more than you necessarily having the right thing to say. And so I think that that just makes a big difference, just knowing that that foundation is still there, even though you might be halfway across the world.
Thank you. So we actually, on that note, we do have one more question, but on that, I want to say, we want to keep these questions open. Obviously, this is so fantastic. So what I'm going to encourage everyone to do, we only can take one more now, but I'm going to ask you to email us, because we are going to get the information, if that's okay. We will continue the dialogue, and that's actually the start of Parent Cafe. We are launching Let's Get Together Parent Cafe. We want to open up these channels where parents start sharing these stories and become each other's resources. So send us your questions, pick up our business card at the end, or you have our email, and we will get in touch with Kaza's and Aaron's family and help answer your questions one way or another. Or we're going to do a part 2. Maybe we'll be virtual, who knows? So one last question, and then we have our kids that have our junior ballers got some presentations for us as well, and then we're going to do final wrap-ups. So, yeah. Okay, so the question is, did your boys grow up in multi-sports, and at what age did they have to start focusing on one?
Well, for Aaron, he started off swimming, and he was very active, very energetic. He always, like from a young age, he always had a ball in his hand, so he was always kicking the ball, throwing the ball, just a bundle of energy. And so I knew early on that I had to get some kind of activity for him, otherwise I would be passed out. So we started off with swimming through, we did Parks and Rec. That's one big thing, Parks and Rec a lot. And swimming, he lasted, he did a couple sessions, but we knew that swimming was not his thing. He always came back to basketball. He played volleyball as well in school. He was pretty good at volleyball too. But basketball, we always came back to basketball. That was his love, his passion.
Kaza actually was very athletic, very competitive, because he had 2 older sisters who played multiple sports as well. So Kaza played rep level and actually provincial level baseball. He was in track. He was very good in track as well. And at grade 9, it was grade 9. The only sport I didn't support him playing was football. And I had said to him, there's no way. I have one son, and I said I would be that mother who would go out on the field and take you off. I did. I told the coaches, they asked me all the time, he's great because he's very fast. He's a really good guy. And I said, no, not that. He didn't have any interest in hockey, but I think that's because it wasn't something that we pushed, because we actually ran a basketball organization. So that was probably the biggest push. But it was grade 9 where he had to make a decision as to focusing and building those muscles, because particular for his sport to maintain him as that grade 9. Yeah. So,
I was just going to say, for those who have questions, maybe they can also come up and ask you questions on your own, and I'm going to ask one of my team members to go. If you have questions, One of our team members will get your question actually too. So what we'd love to do is, if you can say your final words, now that we have the family together, and then after that, kids, are you guys ready to show us what your rap move is for your three-pointer? Oh, come on. Is there any group that's ready? I'm going to go get your leaders, find out where they are. Okay, but on that note, because we have all the families here together, and this is about family, Hugh and Karen, do you have anything to say to the families here who are here to learn more?
Family is everything. I don't think you can really put a word on it. We're kind of designed as beings to create family. You know, engage in it, love it, respect it, appreciate it.
Family rocks. They just rock. That's family is everything. So just support, just love, just show up. Just show up.
Fantastic. Anything else on those? Anybody else from Ryan? Sierra?
Can't say it stress enough that what was said already is perfect. As well, like, don't worry too much as parents. You guys are here today, so you're already showed up. You're already curious enough to know what the next step is. Just stay curious and stay, be ready. Just stay equipped for your child. That's all you need to know.
I just have one thing to say too, is that it's really special that you are here today, like I had said initially. And I appreciate it, and it's even extra special for me because it's Kaza's birthday today. So I will never forget today, so I appreciate you coming out and taking the time.
Thanks, guys.
I also know, besides Kaza's birthday, it was Julie, Mom Julie, right there, Grandma, to Aaron's birthday yesterday, too. Okay, so they should be ready. Okay, so guys, the junior ballers, I know you may not have the rap or whatever dance perfect, but this is part of learning, okay? So we just want to see what you've created, if you can. So come up with your groups. And guys, I'd like to introduce you. This is the University of Toronto Mississauga students, their team, the Center for Student Engagement. We couldn't have done today without them, so thank you so much. So we get the kids up to show what they've created. Group by group. So whose group's going to go first? Okay. We get to see the kids do this move. So maybe one day this will go viral. Okay, so this is for the dunk. So we imagine Aaron's dunk. There we go. And?
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. So for those who are at the game, every time you see a dunk, high five. Yeah. Okay, so this is our 10 and 11-year-old group here. Which one's this for? This is the... So when the 905ers shoot a three-pointer... 1, 2, 3. So what is that? Wait a minute. Everyone's got to do it. Okay, let's see it. Do it again. Come on out. Come on out. Sandy, come on out to the front. Okay, Sandy, let's go. Come on in. Okay, so our song. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, last group. So this is the 12 and up. 12 and up. Come on down. Let's go. And this is for the free throw.
Alright, so this is for when the team scores a free throw. We go.
So what is it? Snap, snap.
Come on, guys, show it properly.
Ready?
One more time.
Kaza's throwing the free throw and snap, snap. Woo! This is our final wrap-up. So, want to say a few things here. So, first of all, thank you to Donna, Ryan, Sierra, Karen, and Hugh, and your family for making time and being here. They studied the questions, they did their research, they wanted to make sure their messages were powerful and could help you. So thank you for taking the time to do that and being here today. I also want to thank the 905 Raptors team, because obviously without them we wouldn't be here today. So we've got Melanie here, who's the community relations and player development, and her team as well too. So I think there were three of them. And so she's been instrumental. Also want to thank OBA for their support as well too. Today happens to be OBA Day. I want to thank Felicia. Felicia's over there. She's part of the sales team. And I encourage you to talk to her. The 905 Raptors have some great events, great sales, great fundraising opportunities for schools, families, organizations. Felicia is the person to talk to. And to be honest, you know, as an organization, when we came in here, MLSC Raptors 905, huge. And we just thought, you know, here's a great idea. And I think I reached out to one of you two. And they actually said, let's talk. And you know what, for a grassroots organization like that, you don't get that very often. And here we had two people who just said, let's talk. And it always starts with a talk. And so without that talk, and without that willingness to explore, we wouldn't be here today sharing all this information and making what is powerful connections. As Hugh said, we're all connected. And this is a connecting moment. So thank you to Felicia and Melanie for your support in making this happen. Also want to thank all our volunteers. We have an amazing group of volunteers. As I said, the University of Toronto Mississauga students we've worked with really closely. Thank you. Center for Student Engagement. Getting up on a Saturday morning is not easy, but thank you. And then our group of volunteers. We have Farida, Monica, Danette, Brian, my husband Jeff, and Laura, Kiana, Julie. Hopefully I haven't missed anybody, but for all of you, and Marcin, for being here, and thank you for being here and behind the scenes doing a lot of the work, because this wouldn't have been happened without them. So thank you. Miriam, the City of Mississauga, they stepped in. They came in and saw the potential, and I want to thank them so much for their support as well too. We have CJ Skateboard. So after this, we encourage you to go back there. CJ Skateboard is opening up a new skateboard facility in Mississauga. They have one in Etobicoke. It's the largest indoor skateboard school in North America, so the second one is there. So you can find out about skateboard safety and things like that, and edge imaging. So we are expecting to have Stripe coming out at some point, but you can take free family photos or group photos through edge imaging, so see Joseph over there. And last but not least, to thank all of you for taking time out of your day to learn about what you can do to better support your children. You know, it all starts with the parents, really. You know, we do talk to our kids and we want to educate them, but as, you know, Hugh, Karen, Donna, and Sarah and Ryan said, it starts at home and it starts with us. And that's why I'm here today, is to make sure we have the tools to do the job so we can do it to the best that we can. So On that note, if you really like today, please, follow us, join us. We have our social media. We do have another event coming up on March the 10th, and it is a build-up. It's going to be where the players are going to speak and share their stories of how they've gotten to where they're at today. And that's a family event. You're going to watch the game first, and then after that, the players are going to come back out and share their stories. And so we encourage you, you can buy tickets today, and they're a little cheaper, or you can still buy them online. But please come out and share the news, and that's it. So thank you so much for being here, and have a great day.